Had a pretty difficult day today and yesterday since last night, and this video is my way of putting some light back out there into the world. Last night I was caught in a tailspin spiral downward of getting lost in the YouTube world and just not wanting to face the things that I needed to face and honestly just go to bed. So again, this is a way to help benefit the world and get myself and get anybody else back on track that this hopefully will be beneficial for. There have been a number of reasons that I have had serendipitously, you could say, to put out some thoughts into the world about the concept of self-deception. Now, if any of you have taken time to study leadership or personal development, there's a good chance that you may have come across the concepts of self-deception. It's been definitely made popular by the Arbinger Institute. You may have read or heard of the book called The Anatomy of Peace. It's a good book. I thought it was okay. Honestly, it wasn't the greatest thing ever for me. I'm sure that other people that it's one of their top favorite books of all time. But I would like to speak on some of these ideas about self-deception and how important this concept really is and how it can apply to your life right now. When I first was introduced to this idea of self-deception, I didn't think it was as important as it really is. And again, some of these ideas have helped me connect it to a much more relatable idea. So some of these ideas are going to be in a religious or a spiritual Christian, Judeo-Christian gospel context. So just be aware of that. But here are some of these ideas of self-deception that I'll share with you. So the process of self-deception, it's really a process or a state that somebody gets into rather than just a static thing. It's a state of being. But the process or the concept of self-deception is the modern term and concept of loving darkness rather than light. It is how we get cut off from things that are of greater worth, or you could say greater light and truth. Things that are more helpful and beneficial in the world. Jesus, in the New Testament, John chapter 3, he basically gave us the gospel context or the Christian context of this concept of self-deception when he said that this is the condemnation that has come into the world, that they love darkness rather than light. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's pretty close. So continuing on, I'm reading just some of these thoughts, by the way, in case you were wondering. When one turns from the path of light and truth, or in other words, what they know would be the best thing to do, to say, to be, how to act, how to treat someone, themselves, etc. When we turn from what we know is right, we not only go the wrong way, but we lose greater or lesser awareness of what is right. Because one must justify that path in order to avoid the pain of knowing what was right, or otherwise, it would always be present before them until they reconcile with that thing that they rejected from their conscience. And it is often painful to do that. The right thing is often the hardest thing. We lose interest, or rather we must devalue the thing that we believed was right, and we must create a new identity to avoid the cognitive dissonance that would come. So our identity becomes parted or fragmented, and we are then operating at a lesser capacity to do good for ourselves and do good for the world. To be restored to the right way requires outside intervention, because we are literally not interested in it anymore. And if we do try to find it, if we do try to turn around and find it, we cannot, because our conscience or our ability to discern has been seared. Angels, seen or unseen, those with greater light and truth, at least in the area that we have rejected, are required to restore us to the way. Because all have departed from the way of greatest benefit, the way of greatest light and truth at some point and in different areas of our life, there is a chain of hierarchy of those with greater and lesser truth. Ultimately, one standing at the top of all things, of greater light and truth. I would say that's Jesus. You may choose to decide that that's somebody else, but I say that that's Jesus. We could talk about that for a lot longer. So anyway, we could share a lot more things about that. There's a lot more to discuss about that, frankly. And that's probably a pretty, I don't know, a pretty heavy, pretty like, whoa thing. It took me a long time to come up to any of these understandings that I'm sharing with you now. So how do we apply this to our life right now? Well, we must pay attention for the things that catch our curiosity. This can come in so many different ways. There's really two paths. Stuff that we've already turned from, that we need to turn back to and really accept and reconcile with in our life, integrate it back into our life. And there's also the path of just discovering things that are new, things that we haven't necessarily turned from in the past. So how do we recognize these things? Well, we, on the path of doing our best to come back to things that we've turned away from, well, we need to look at things honestly in our life, and we need to be introspective. In order to do that, you actually got to take time. You got to have either somebody help you, or you got to take time and allow ideas to be presented to you that you probably will think are just coming to you, or that your own mind produces. And I would suggest otherwise. You can believe whatever you want. But we need to take that time to be introspective and to consider, to think deeply, to ponder, and meditate on the ways that we can make our life better than what it currently is. So doing that is really the starting point to any sort of betterment, transformation, creating a new experience that is much more worthwhile in life. So that is one way to go about doing it. I've made a practice in my own life of really honing my awareness to pay attention to things that catch my curiosity. It can come from so many different places. It can come from you're driving down the road and some sort of sign, a word stands out to you, and it carries a message with it that is totally different for you than basically any other person that's driving down the same road, seeing the same word on the same sign, whatever. That is a total hypothetical example. But paying attention to the things that have caught my curiosity, also doing introspective things like I just mentioned, to think about ways that my life has gotten more difficult and where the source of that difficulty came from. And I have to trace all that back, and I have to really pay attention to things that are showing up in my life, things that people say, whether it's a real person right there in front of me that I'm actually having a conversation with, whether it's something I'm seeing on a TV or on the internet or whatever, something I'm reading, again, something that catches my awareness out and about. We can be restored to the way from things that we've turned from in so many different ways. And when we are just looking for new information to make our life better, to have answers to questions that we have, then it's a very similar process um, to actually discover something new rather than coming back to ground level of something that we have turned away from in the past. So those are some practical things. Pay attention to the things that catch your awareness and pursue those things, pursue them to their end, and see how you can implement them into your life. So, Gal, I wish that we could talk about this for a couple hours, but we'll leave it at that for now. So again, this is my way of getting myself back on track and doing my best to put out light into the world. Hopefully this is beneficial to somebody, and look forward to sharing more about some really important things in the near future. Thanks. Bye-bye.